everybody. It's Rob again. It's time for another member talk. Happy to have you on here. Today we've got a guest that's coming back for round two. Micah Truman is with us today. Hey, Micah.
How's it going, Rob?
It's wonderful. Micah is, if you didn't catch the first time he was on here, Micah's looking at becoming a natural organic reduction specialist. I guess that's how you would say it. Is that right?
Well, I'd better be good at it, hadn't I? Beat the alternative.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
Micah, let's jump right into it, because natural organic reduction is something that most people outside of the state of Washington may not know what it is, may not heard those expressed words or the conversation. Essentially, in a nutshell, what is it?
So natural organic reduction, or I call it terramation. I think it's a little easier, right? We've got burial and cremation and now terramation. Terramation is the transformation of a human body into soil, and it happens at reasonably fast speed. It's a 60-day process from beginning to end, and when we're done with it, sweet-smelling compost soil is delivered to the family. So think of it like cremation, but slower and with a lot more soil. No ash and a lot, 400, 500 pounds of soil. I know it sounds crazy.
Holy cats. Wow.
Yep.
400 to 500 pounds of soil.
That is correct.
So we're talking, and for lack of better terms, we're talking human composting is what we're at.
Let's go there.
Let's call it that. Some people are like, huh? Did you just say human composting? Some people are like, yeah, finally it's here.
Yeah.
Wow, what a process. I don't even know where to start. Tell us the process. How do we take somebody that is a deceased human individual and turn them into 400 or 500 pounds of soil?
So, sure. Before I jump into that, I think it's really important we look at why this whole business, this whole sector of the funeral business, I think is about to explode. I'm a finance guy. I'm not in the funeral profession. At least I wasn't prior. And I see what's happening right now as people reevaluating how they want to leave this world. And I know I've talked to a lot of guys in the funeral industry, and there's a feeling like, yeah, right. But I actually feel the time is right. I think people are very much looking to have their last act on this planet be one that gives back to the earth. And I realize that it's not going to be everybody, but watch this space, guys, because it is coming. So that's my first. So jumping into process. As I said, the entire process takes about 60 days. It is done in a vessel. The body is kept completely on its own, and it is not separated. The body is put into a vessel with bulking agent, which is alfalfa, and in our case, sawdust. It is a 4-to-1 ratio of bulking agent to body. So a 200-pound body is going to be 800 pounds of bulking agent. So you're talking about a half ton of material in that. It's a lot. The body, the bulking agent gets the body hot up to temperature in the same way that kindling will do for a fire. And the bulking agent quickly goes to about 140 degrees, and the body follows suit. And for about 10 days, maybe even up to 2 weeks, the entire vessel is running at 130 plus degrees, like really hot. At the end of a month, the body's gone, and it's done by using the microbes in your body. I know it's kind of crazy, but the microbes that are in your body that you use to digest food and does whatever it does, it's also there to erase you, and we disappear. And it's a magic process, and one that happens in nature, but the vessel process makes happen extremely quickly. Once that month is done, contrary to things you might have heard, there are bones and teeth left over, and no, they are not removed or reduced in this. That's not quite true. They are to some extent reduced, but I be aware that they are very much there.
Okay. All right.
Bones and teeth are ground. Prior, we're going to be doing all non-organic, inorganic extractions. You can have hips and whatever else; those will come out.
Sure.
The bones, teeth will be ground and put back into the mix. The mix will be let to sit for another month. And when you're done, it's compost, it's soil. Take it, plant it, do what you will with it. It is no longer a body in any way, shape, or form.
All right.
There it is.
I got lots of questions for you, man. I do.
I'll have a quick drink of water.
I guess let's start, because the one question is, you brought it up, bones, teeth, that kind of stuff, hips, prosthetics in particular. How do you separate that? You said after 30 days, they're removed and separated and then placed ground and placed back into the bulking agent or the
Back
soil.
into the mix. Yep.
Back into the mix, and then another 30 days goes by and they're gone. How do you separate them? How are you doing that?
So we're going to have, in essence, two different, I would say, types of inorganic. You're going to have your big pieces. Those are your hips and your knees and large plates. And those are visible and easily removed. And so those will be simply removed. Okay. But we also have little pieces. Those will be screws and other, stents and other small things. And what we will do is the mix will be put through a filtration system, or I should say what do you call that? I've just lost the word. A wire mesh.
Like a screen.
A screening. It is essentially screened and screened at a little over a 1/4 inch. Okay. And so your overs will be right there, and we will go through them piece by piece. In that way, very similar to cremation. It's not that much that's going to be left over. It's very fine. And we'll go through it then as well. And that'll be that.
So I'm assuming then that once you start this process, the remains must be as organic as possible, meaning we're not adding caskets, we're not adding jewelry, we're not viscera bags. I mean, all that stuff. We've got to be as organic as possible.
The body will enter the vessel in as much a way as it entered the earth in the beginning. So we would want as much removed from the body as we possibly can. And then obviously we'll remove whatever inorganics are at the end. But no, we don't want anything. And most importantly, we cannot do or deal with embalming, because that will freeze the composting process in its tracks. That simply will permit the microbes to, they'll be dead. There's nowhere for them to go. So embalming is also out of the question in this case.
So we're not going to have embalming, which, some might say is okay, some might say not. But the response is we can't have embalming.
Yep.
As what we came in with and what we go out with are the same.
We'd like the body to leave in the same way it came in. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, yep.
Now, how do we get the temperature? You said 140 degrees. Are you heating the mass, or is that just natural temperature buildup?
No, it's natural. I don't know if you've ever gardened much, but if you've got a big pile of compost and you take a shovelful out, it literally steams and it's hot. Right. Same game here. And what we do is we optimize that bulking agent to take the body along for the ride. And it's like, how would I even say that? It's like stages in a rocket ship. The bulking agent provides the initial lift, that initial start, and gets the body up to about 130, 140 degrees. Okay. But once the body is up to that temperature and the microbes begin to do their work, this aerobic activity begins, the body is doing it on its own. So it's surprising how little energy, if at all, we need to add to that process. This is completely driven by the science and the body itself.
Yeah.
Pretty straight up.
So is that vessel you talk about, is that rotating or turning, or what are we doing with it? Is it just...
Yup. So the vessel is put on a rack and it stays there, but at different intervals, it is rotated and it is also hydrated. So the problem with this process is it's a finicky one. If it's too dry, so remember, air must flow through this mix. If it's too wet, air's not going to go through. Bad. If it's too dry, it mummifies. Air will not go through. Bad again. So you've got to make sure you have an optimal hydration or moisture rate throughout the entire process. Rotation is also really important to make sure that everything is evenly covered by compost, and that also will be done regularly.
Okay.
So it's an involved process. We've spent a year doing it, and we've gotten good at it, and it's taken a lot of doing. In fact, no, I haven't. I've spent 17 months doing it. No, 16 months doing it. Yeah, and we got a ways to go. So this is a very, very careful and involved process. It's by no means simple.
What about the I guess, would you call it byproducts? Is there any byproducts? All that heat, all that moisture's got to go somewhere. Does it just go up into the atmosphere, or what happens?
Yes, we don't have any byproducts, and we are very assiduous. We're careful about not separating the body. That's something that we find our families find very important, and we intend to obviously stick to that as close as we can. The only thing that I would see being different would be, of course, we have off-gassing. That is, we have a vent that runs from the bottom where air comes in from the bottom of the vessel. Okay. And it leaves through the top of the vessel. And that, by the way, is its own world. HVAC is a significant undertaking. But I knew you were going there. I knew that was happening. I walked right into it. But the air that comes up is moisture laden. And so there is some water that comes up the pipe. And if that I guess is the only area where I would say there is something that leaves the vessel. Other than that, ain't happening.
All right.
So leachate, everything else doesn't need to leave, and it cycles right back and through. We don't need to get rid of anything, and have designed our system very much in order for that not to happen.
So at the end of 60 days, I'm assuming there's some sort of door or something that you open up, and there's the soil. When the soil comes out of that vessel, are we talking soil that's dry? Are we talking moist, wet? What kind of soil are we looking at here?
Strangely enough, it is compost like you would go to QFC and buy a bag of. Honest to be. It's a moist soil. It's very rich. The mistake that people make is they think they'll make a pile of compost and put a plant in it. Like, please don't do that. It needs to be mixed with soil, otherwise it's just going to shotgun whatever you plant in there. It's just a very nutritionally dense product, and it's great. The thing that I think people also have to understand a little bit is it is compost. Therefore, don't treat it like cremated remains. Don't wrap it in plastic and stick it in your cupboard. It's going to mold. You know what I mean? It's compost. So we are going to have to educate our families that it needs to be treated in a way we haven't done before.
So what are we able to do with it then? I mean, obviously, we don't want to stick it on our shelf in a bag. I get that. But first off, that's a big shelf if you can hold 800 pounds up there. But what do we do with it?
That's a heck of a book that you got there. Yeah. Well, okay, let's be very clear about what we're dealing with here that makes it a little different from things we've done before. I think a lot of people who get cremated remains put it in a box or a vase or whatever it is they do, and they put it on a shelf. This is meant to be used. You don't want to hold this. You want to go plant something with this. This is for someone who wants to go out, plant a tree, plant roses, and go do things. It is not meant to sit there wrapped up in your closet. That's going to be bad. So it really is a customer education thing in that this needs to be used and taken out there. It is not like a product we've had before with cremation.
And are you returning everything to a family if they wanted, or?
We will give people three choices. They can have a small urn, they can have a larger container, or we'll give them the entire yard and a half. They can take that choice. And we'll keep it very simple for them. If they want a small amount, it's theirs. We understand that most families will not be able to take those types of amounts, and we will be sure to donate that to areas, land trusts, other areas that can use the soil.
Yeah, a yard and a half. That's a lot of space.
We won't make it anyone's problem. If you'd like an urn of that, just like you would with cremated remains, please, by all means, do that. If for some reason, however, you want all of it, we will get it to your front door.
So this is brand new. Obviously, it passed last year, but they just actually finished writing the legislation or the laws pertaining to what you need to do. Tell us that process a little bit. What did you have to do to be able to even offer this?
So it was pretty funny. I should tell you a story that I thought was kind of cool. I think your members might enjoy this. So I think you and I've talked about this, but I'm not a funeral industry guy, and I went to your, to DEath Con a little over a year ago, and I was sitting there, and you had that big party on the last night, and everyone was having a couple pops and having a nice time.
Some of us were having pops.
I'm sorry, not it. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I went outside for a breather and sat on the steps, and there was a person sitting next to me, and we got chatting, and she said, "What do you plan to do?" And I told her, and she was like, I really don't like you guys. I really don't like you. And I was like, "Why don't you like me? Like, I'm a good guy." And she said, "Because you're a bunch of cowboys. You don't know what the hell you're doing." She said, "You guys are going to go out there with this new law, with processes that are not mature and have problems, and then you're going to screw it up, and guess who's going to be left holding the bag? The funeral industry. We're going to be the fall guys." And I sat there and went, "Good point. I hear that. I understand why that could be an issue." And so for the last year, I've put an enormous amount of my own capital into this to make sure that our science is as dialed as it can be and that mistakes are not made. And so yes, what we've done is to create a process that has not been created before. And we've done it. And we're very good at it now. And that's been a big undertaking for us.
Well, I think the key word here is science. This is a science that's been around. I mean, the process of composting is nothing new. It's been around since the beginning of time, I would suspect. People have been composting.
Yes.
Have people been composting human remains, or is that a new idea? I'm assuming they've been composting animals for years and years and years. Especially farmers. I know a lot of farmers that have done that. Is it that much different? I mean, is the science really that different than animals?
Great question. Science is identical. It's just that we're humans and cows are cows and pigs are pigs. And so the science is actually very mature. So when I went out in the beginning to go get this process going, I began to talk to a group of people, and they're called mortality composters. You go look at them. John Paul is the guy that runs my whole operation on the composting side. And if you type in mortality compost, he's got videos on YouTube with 250,000 views. People know and listen to this guy. He really knows what he's doing. Now, the process we use with pigs or chickens is going to be different, right? First of all, you're not putting pigs in individual vessels. You're probably grinding pigs up and putting them in piles. And we had to work with a very mature science and technology that has been used for a long time and make it available for human use. And so it wasn't that the science was new. It's that our methodology had to change substantially. And that's what we had to do. So chickens, you're composting chickens, put 1,000 of them together at a time. Pigs, 50, 20 together at a time. Grind them up, do whatever you do. Cover them in, chicken poop, whatever gets the nitrogen in it. Those are not things we're humans, and those are not things we are going to be doing. And so it was taking that very mature science and making it applicable to people that took us that period of time. So one side, old as the hills in another.
Yeah. One thing I know, especially with cremation and alkaline hydrolysis, which is another new thing that's coming up this year in Washington, identification. Identification is a very big part of our process. Confirming identification, keeping that identification throughout the process. We use these metal coins in the crematory, for example, that have identification numbers. How is that process going to work with natural organic reduction? How are you going to continue that positive identification?
I see our process really as identical to cremation, because what we have is a body that ultimately is gone, and you have to have a system that allows for the tracking of that chain of custody to go through uninterrupted. We're capable of doing everything in terms of process that cremation does. We're also talking to the big software vendors, Halcyon and everyone else, and they're perfectly able to accommodate what we do. Our process takes 60 days, not 90 minutes. But other than that, there really isn't anything special. In addition, our vessels are running at 140 degrees. They're not running at 1,500 degrees. So we can put materials in there that will obviously stand the test of time. The other thing is just like any other process, every time the body is moved or touched, there will be a barcode and it will be recorded. So we will have absolute trackability with chain of custody for every single case that we have, no exceptions.
At the end of the process, when you have the completed product, the soil, and you're transporting that, say you got 2 or 3 families that have said, just, go to a forest or something, whatever you're going to do there. Is that individually taken out and deposited out there, or can you mingle at the time or commingle at the time that soil?
That's an excellent question. Our decision is that we will commingle. And what we will do is this, it will be very, very clear with the customer. We completely understand that you want the soil from your loved one. We understand that you might want a little or a lot. We understand that soil will not be mixed with anybody ever, absolutely. But if you tell us you don't want it and you want it donated, it's going to mix with the rest of the world no matter what. And of course, on our side, we need to be efficient in what we do. So we'll make it very clear that we will mix it, we will donate it, we'll do the very best we can, but that will be the case.
Okay.
Should a family say, I just don't want that, I just feel wrong about that, we absolutely understand that. And our answer to that is, please let us deliver that entire amount to your home then. We will get it to your door. But that's how we have to do it.
How's your science, or what's your science say about DNA following this process? I know we've all seen when it first came out and it first kind of hit the news wires, Washington State's going to allow for human composting. There was a lot of stuff that was said. Some late night shows did some parodies and that sort of stuff.
Wait until this business launches. Conan O'Brien just absolutely hammer us. He's
going to love you.
It's coming.
The question, though, is, and I saw some of those where they were actually holding the bag of, quote, grandma or whatever at the end product. How do you know that? Have you tested that soil? Is there any DNA left in that soil that would indicate that this is from a deceased human?
To be honest, though, Rob, I think there will be some. Almost all of it is gone, but remember, we do have small fragments of bone chips, and those bone chips have not been put through an incinerator. So the truth of the matter is, yes, I think there will be some residual DNA left over. I think that will be the case. Okay. Yes. And we're gonna have to figure out how to manage that, but that will be the.
I guess you could always do the whole conspiracy theory, and what happens if you put the soil here and later on someone comes along and dies on the same spot, and you can do all the what ifs, but the reality is it sounds like it's probably not going to be as effective as what people are thinking. Is that?
I don't think what we're saying here is that you've got 500 pounds, any of which will just be riddled with DNA. I think that we've got small fragments, that there will be some in there. But then again, we're sloughing DNA off our bodies every moment of the day with our hair and our skin and everything else that happens. DNA runs through our sewage system like mad. So I think this is, while this is true, I don't really see this as a massive gating item. But again, I have been asked this question and I do want to clearly answer it. Yeah, I think we will have DNA left in our mix. That will happen. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and if you're told that it's all gone, I don't think that's going to fly. Watch this.
Yeah. You kind of wonder too. Burial. You bury somebody in a grave, especially unembalmed burials. You probably have more DNA, I would imagine, that's seeping out into the soil at that point than you would from what we're talking about with the compost. Is my guess. I don't know the answer, but.
No, and I don't mean to be all fluffy about this, but the fact of the matter is all kinds of organic matter, people, all other animals, we're going back to the earth. And as we go into the earth, our DNA is there, and it's the cycle is how it works. And that's just part of the deal. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to have to come to grips with that to some extent. I do.
Well, I think we're also looking at it through, for lack of better terms, North American eyes. Across the country, well, actually across the world, people have different viewpoints of how to dispose of dead human bodies. And
Yes.
to many people, many cultures, what we're talking about right now is nothing new, is nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to be frightened of. It seems like other cultures are doing this and more. It's just that it's just now coming into our line of sight here in the Western world.
And I think that we've always had this distance, and you guys, the funeral industry knows this, chapter and verse. You know exactly how, we're dealing with our deceased because it's your business too. But I do feel a major change happening. And I do feel that people want to start, not all, in fact, it might even be a small minority. If my company does a touch under 1% of Washington State's decedents, that would be marvelous. So we're not talking about everybody, but I do see a slice of our population wanting to do things differently. And I would say to our members, keep your eyes open. This is going to be a very swift change. So watch this space.
Well, all right, Micah, let's cut to the chase here. How can funeral homes in Washington, we're going to say Washington, because hopefully, as this grows, you're going to expand and that sort of stuff. But for right now, how can funeral homes in Washington State partner with you to offer or to at least know that it's out there if they choose to do that? I'm sure once this gets out and open, families are going to be coming to funeral homes and saying, tell me about this whatever you call it, this
weird stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And we need to, as funeral providers, we need to be able to A, tell them, but B, somehow offer it. How can we do that with you? How does that work?
Yeah. So I'm being very, very careful about how we design our service. Everything that we do is designed to cooperate with the funeral industry. We think of us as a crematorium. Think of us identically to a crematorium. It's just that our product, is soil and not ash, and it takes a longer time. But other than that, all of the rest is all yours. We don't intend to take any of it, from pickups to drop-offs to ceremonies to everything else. It's all yours. We see ourselves in the ecosystem as an earth-friendly crematorium, as a way that we can do an earth-friendly disposition. The rest is yours, and we would be delighted to partner. In fact, I'm going to be visiting most funeral directors that I can drive to in a 50, 75-mile radius over the next couple months. Give me a little time, but I'll get to you if I can.
So you're a third-party vendor is essentially what we're saying. Is you're no different than if we were using a cemetery we didn't own or a crematory that we didn't own. We would essentially rent that from you or somehow get the remains to you, and you would take over at that point for the final process.
That is absolutely correct. And again, I want to restate, I have zero intention of in any way disintermediating the industry. What I want is to work with you guys. I'm the guy that's coming in with the new thing. You guys are the ones who understand this industry and have that whole ecosystem around you. So I see it as my role to plug into your workflow, and I will be extremely careful about doing that.
Okay. So family will come to us. They say, we want to have a funeral. We want to do whatever. As long as we don't have embalming, we can still have the funeral. We can still get the remains to you. You can take care of your process, and we can work out a way to return the individual either in a small piece or a larger container, or
I can put it in the back of a Honda Civic, or I can put it in an F-150. You tell me what you want, and I will get it to the loved ones. I absolutely will do that. Yep. Awesome. We're turnkey. We'll keep it simple for you.
That's a good business. I think you're going to do fine with it. I think that's pretty cool. Let me, so I'm going to read a couple questions to you. We actually posted on our Facebook page the other day that we were going to be talking with you. And I put on here, what kind of questions would you ask if you could talk directly to the horse's mouth, so to speak?
This is here.
Some of these actually, some of these questions I will say we've actually touched on, but I'm going to read them because I want to get them all the people that posted them. I want to give them their opportunity to speak. So even if we have maybe answered the question, we can re-answer it again if that's all right with you.
Sure thing.
we've got a question here that asks, will there be only one business doing this? Are you the only people doing this?
I think there are going to be a couple. We'll see how they all launch. We appear to be the largest, at least from what I can tell so far. We are just been given the second natural organic reduction license in existence. So that was really interesting. And we see ourselves launching in March or April. So it's going to be pretty quick for us, and we'll see about the rest.
All right. This is a question from a person I know that is a funeral director here in the state. She asks a couple of questions. The first one: what temperatures are reached or sustained?
Yep.
And I think you said that was about 140, isn't it?
140.
Yeah.
140.
Okay.
Yep.
What is the mechanism for rotation of the organic matter?
Oh man, I should send you a video. Did I just okay, so just so you guys understand, my team has no funeral people in it right now. My team is composed of soil scientists, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, zoning experts specifically for compost facilities. Those are my peeps. My mechanical engineers, you know those when you go to the airport and you look out the window and there's all those weird cars that don't look right, but they sort of do very specific jobs.
You mean the ones that I've always wanted to work at the airport?
Exactly.
Just so I
one
can
with
drive?
the weird staircase sticking off the back or the conveyor belt out the window. We have designed a set of machinery very similar to that. So we have just built a custom rotator. So what's going to happen is our vessels will be on racks, and then they will be moved into processing areas. And the rotator is exactly that. You slide it in on this gimbal, and it rotates 1,000-pound vessel at the touch of a button. So that's working, and I will send you a video of it soon now, Rob.
I want to see it. So describe it a little bit, because forgive me, I don't mean to make light of this, but all I can think of is like the squirrel cages at the carnival. You got the big wheel with the cages all around that are rotating as the wheel's rotating. How does it actually work?
Think of it like a steel box, a giant steel box. So it's these iron bars that are box shaped. The vessel is simply dropped in. It's got because it's got the ability to be forklifted. It's got forklifting, a rack on the bottom.
Oh, sure.
It's simply deposited there. The top is put on it, so it's tight and held firmly. And you literally just press a button, and that entire cage rotates.
Wow. And
I will send you the video. It was like Christmas last week.
I want to see more than the video. I want to come see it in person.
You know what the really frustrating thing for me is my entire team is based just across the border in Canada, and I can't physically get to them. So all the things that I'm seeing on video, it's killing me. So they're
restrictions and stuff.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated. But videos are there, and obviously goods are easily shippable, so they'll move them over to the warehouse come Q1.
All right. So let's get back to these here. Another question that I think we've already answered, but we'll do it again. How much human mulch is created? And I say human mulch in air quotes because we don't know the actual term. You called it terramation.
Terramation. And actually, let me stop just for a second. And I think it's really important, Rob, that we begin to change the way we talk about it. And I'll tell you why. You'll notice you guys never say human incineration. Right. And when you're talking to your client, you don't say, I think incineration of your loved one would be a really excellent disposition choice. And obviously there's a reason we choose that, because that ain't it, Chief. And we're trying to do the exact same thing with terramation, to say both as a noun and as a verb. It's terramation, and you terramate someone. Terra, earth, mation, motion, change. So it's something that we're trying to stick with over this next chunk of time.
What are we calling the end product? Terramated remains?
We could do, or I would even use soil. I don't mind using that. I mean, to be honest, I would say soil sounds fine to me.
I think easier to spell.
I'm sorry?
I said it's certainly easier to spell.
I agree. But then again, if you look at cremation, I was like, what are you making? Cream?
Yeah, well, that's true.
We just get used to certain words, and we're like, yeah, that's the way the world is.
I like that, though. Terramation. So that's actually something that you've created to describe the process.
That is correct. I want to start seeing if we can get that out there, but absolutely.
All right, good deal. Okay, so going back, how much, and we'll call it soil, it says human mulch, but we'll call soil, is created, and how is that released to the next of kin? So I think we discovered that upwards of, well, quite a bit.
500 pounds, yeah, yard and
Yeah.
a half, a good pickup truck full. But I think the very important thing that our partners, our funeral partners, need to understand in the industry is that don't get the family concerned about that. You simply tell them, we will get you the amount that makes you comfortable. If an urn is what you'd like, an urn is what you will get. And if you want all of it, we will absolutely accommodate that. Don't fret.
So let me ask you this, and I'm going to kind of sidestep here, but forgive me because I just thought of this question. At the beginning, you said, don't put this on your shelf because in a plastic bag, it will mold or whatever. What if that's what you want? What if you want an urn on your shelf that has the soil? Can you dry it out without it, set it in the sun
Absolutely.
or something and then do it?
Absolutely. So this is a living thing. It's compost, right? Which is what we all have. And it will do just fine as long as it has access to oxygen. So if you put a loose covering over it so that air could come in, you'll be just fine, or a piece of burlap or anything. Where we're going to start having problems if someone decides they're going to wrap it in saran. Now we're going to have a situation. But absolutely, that is perfectly doable so long as it has access to air. And over time, it will get ever more stable and dry. And if you let it sit there for, I don't know, with compost, right? If you let it sit for a year in a dry environment, I would imagine it's very, very dry. And even at a certain point, you could wrap it up.
Sure. Okay.
But the moisture would have to leave that, then.
So we briefly talked about this one. Is it safe? Is it a safe disposition option for COVID-19 positive decedents and decedents that have recently received chemotherapy or radiation therapy? Where are we at with that?
Yep. Well, COVID, I think you guys have seen, much like we have, I don't think we're an exception to this rule. COVID, I believe, is transmittable from a dead body for a very short period of time after death,
Right.
I believe. Right. So we would probably have a similar issue as anyone else would, and we would have to use appropriate precautions just like you guys would. So there's that. But in the long term, I really don't see that as a problem, just as probably you guys don't. So I think COVID should be pretty well contained. Obviously, the thing, radioactive isotopes is the same thing. If you guys can embalm and you guys can bury, we too can handle. It's not a huge amount of radioactivity we're dealing with. Of course, the one exception, and I believe it's an exception for you guys too, is prion-related diseases. And for us, that's a full stop. We can't do that. But I think that, again, is not anything particularly new, and you guys have similar issues yourselves.
Yeah, we do. And fortunately, we don't see prion-related deaths as often as one would think. That it's kind of the exception still. It's not the rule. So
Ebola is not a disease sweeping the United States.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we're doing all right. But yes, that is a factor. But I guess as a shorthand, I would simply say there is very little difference between where we have gating items, where we have to be cautious and use precautions, and the rest of the industry does too.
Okay. So here's a question. How is natural organic reduction different from green burials? And then it says, for an example, no embalming, natural fiber, shroud. It's kind of I would think it's fairly similar as far as the end product.
Very similar. So the point of what we do is to bypass, to be honest, the graveyard. It allows someone to put it wherever they want. And that's the added advantage. From an earth-centered standpoint, what we do and what green burial does ultimately is very similar. Back to the earth you go, no fuss, no mess, no preservatives, no chemicals. So in that sense, absolutely. We're working right now on shrouds. That's something I'm really looking at and thinking about because we simply have a shorter timeline than the natural burial folks. Yes, use organic fibers, bury the body. If it takes a year, if it takes 5 years, it's cool. In our case, we have 60 days for that shroud to disappear. And that's quite an interesting challenge for us as we look at it. And I very much want to have a shroud that can do that. And to the members, if anyone knows of shrouds that have that capability, I would love to hear from you because that's something we very much want to do.
Yeah. this person goes on to ask the question, when I compost, I'm assuming they mean at their home. When I compost, I can't put a lot of meat/animal proteins in the compost, or else it throws the whole thing off. How does human remain composting overcome that?
Yep. So in your standard composting pile, that is completely the case, especially if you're using something like worms and worm casings, right? Because worms are not going to eat meat and it's going to be a horrible mess in no time. Our process differs from your average home composting setup. We're not running it in the way that the average home composter would, as I described. And here in Seattle, we use a company called Cedar Grove. Everyone in all of greater Seattle dumps every bit of organic waste they have from their house, and Cedar Grove picks it up. Ham, bones, fat, anything can go in there. And that's because Cedar Grove runs processes scientifically that are to some degree analogous to what we do. So suffice it to say, we don't do what your average home composter does. And we are absolutely able to do this.
Well, yeah, my guess is you probably don't run down to Home Depot and buy this composter vessel that you're talking about. This sounds like it's something that you've had to design and create and test out, obviously, pretty heavily to be able to offer this product.
Suffice it to say that the investment, both in terms of R&D and the actual installation of the machinery, is staggering.
Wow.
I wish I'd have known that right off the bat, but let me tell you, truly epic. Trust me.
This next one, I know we've answered. I'm going to read it because I want to be fair to everybody and get it out there, but I know we've answered it already. Will families receive their loved ones back after a certain amount of time? And if so, are there other options for permanent placement somewhere? And I think we've kind of addressed that a little bit. I guess one of the questions, though, that does spring from that is, what are some of those options? And have you researched that? I mean, obviously going out to a forest or something would be an option, I suspect. But what about, would cemeteries, have you talked with them?
I haven't, but I did talk to a couple. I don't think they have any issue with this. You can purchase a gravesite and you can put soil in. All they want is to be sure that they're observing the letter of the law, and it unequivocally is. But I want to ask actually, or turn around to a slightly different question, but tied to what you just asked, which is this. I think that our community really should think carefully about one big difference. I mean, obviously, it's soil and that's a change. But the other really big one that I think we should consider is that our process, and I've said it before, takes 60 days. So what does that mean to your family? What does that mean to your sales cycle? How does that work with the ceremony when the family maybe doesn't have a loved one at the time because they're doing a funeral a month after death and they still have a month to go? So I want you guys, or I would appreciate, I should say, you guys thinking through the logistics of that and how that might work. Because truly, that 60-day time period is one that I'm pretty chained to. Scientifically, I don't see a way out of that. So love to get thoughts from everybody about how you see that working.
Sure.
Or if it maybe is a really big problem, I'd also be really interested in that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was it for our Facebook questions that came up. I'm kind of excited to see this process. When you say Q1 is what we're looking at for 2021?
We look to be late Q1. That seems to be our launch. We have a facility, 11,500 square feet in Auburn. It is rented, and we are getting all of our permits. As I said, machinery being built, and we are coming off the blocks, everybody. Yeah. So please, I hope that if I give you all a call, that you can find a half hour to come talk to me. I promise I'm not weird. I will explain everything that we do. I'm not a cowboy either. I have worked really hard on this, and I hope that I have something that will add value to your business.
Yeah. Well, I don't see how it could hurt, to be honest with you. To me, it seems like it's a viable source. It's legal, so. And we always say if it's legal and, if they pass, then we can offer it. So,
legit. And I think it's also, really important. And again, I keep banging this drum, and I know everyone's not looking at it because we're in crazy times, and I'm sure everyone's just trying to keep their businesses going. But just remember for 1 second that natural organic reduction, terramation, this is the first place on the planet to be doing it. No one else is doing that. And the world's going to be looking at us, you know? So watch what happens in the next 6 months. I mean, the New York Times, BBC, everyone is going to be covering what happens with this. And our group, our community in the funeral industry, we're the vanguard. And so how you guys work this, how you guys cooperate and do this business is going to be seen in a way that we're not typically used to. So please keep your heads up. It's coming.
Sounds good. Well, Micah, it's been a pleasure. I enjoyed it the last time we spoke. I enjoyed it this time. Boy, it sounds like it's coming together real quick. It sounds like it's not going to be very far away.
Nope.
I know the last time we spoke, it almost kind of seemed like it was just out of grasp, and it was like, well, is it going to? But it's really coming. It's really happening. And
Bring back. Yep.
I love the fact that you know, that you want to work with the funeral profession to see this thing move forward. I think that's a great concept. You
guys have been so supportive of me, Rob. I'm always grateful. And if anyone has comments, please reach out to me directly. Our website is adamah.life, adamah.life. Hit me up. I would be delighted to chat to all of you.
All right. Well, thank you, Micah. We'll get this. We'll see what happens, and let us know when the grand opening is, because I want to come see that machine.
You'll be right there, Rob. I'll be sure to give you an invitation.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Micah.
Rob. Thank you so much.